Well, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Renew You podcast, episode 11. We're officially podcasters.
I think we were podcasters on episode 9.
No, episode 10 is what you said. And then episode 11 really means like, hey, we're not just going to the finish line, but we're going the extra mile.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Second mile type of podcasters we are.
Well, how is our viewership doing?
I will be honest, I'm the worst at checking that.
Well, we had a good catchy name submission.
What is it?
The U Mates.
The U Mates. What's up to all my U Mates?
That was the best. That was the best out of everything.
You mates. Hello, you mates. It's good to have you on the show.
Wow. Great.
Shrimp and some Bobby. That's the local barbecue.
That reminds me, the other day I was thinking, this is nothing to do with the podcast. The other day I was thinking, you know what restaurant I just thought was like top of the line celebratory restaurant when I was a kid?
What's that?
Outback Steakhouse. I was like, I always wanted to go to Outback Steakhouse, but it had to be somebody's like birthday.
Mine was Denny's, so you know. you got me beat.
Man.
Well, awesome. I was on the treadmill this morning. I haven't ran in. I've barely ran. I've ran a couple times, but it has just been really, really hard to run lately. I've been lifting. I've been doing sauna. I've been doing ice bath, and since I've been doing sauna,
I don't think sauna and ice bath count as a workout.
You burn a lot of calories in the sauna, but I'm just doing that because if you do those, you have to talk about it. So I'm talking about it. Those people. But I was on the treadmill this morning, and I started I finished a workout plan. I don't know if that's happened since college baseball.
Wow.
Like I actually went through a full workout plan, finished it in the last 3 weeks. And so I started a new one this morning. And part of it was a 2-mile run. And I'm telling you what, first off, I hate running on a treadmill, but to run and lift both right now pretty much require a treadmill. And so I jump on the treadmill and I'm about halfway through and I'm like, I'm only going a mile. There's no way I'm going 2 miles. And about somewhere in there, a flip switched or a switch flipped, if you know what I'm saying. And
you
I got a little bit of a runner's high. And I started telling myself, what's your joy set out before you?
Wow.
Yep.
Way to apply the message on a Monday. I took a nap I got hit pretty hard with. Well, actually, I will say, I woke up at 4 on accident because our house was very warm.
Today's our off day.
And I did walk 3.5 miles this morning.
You walked 3.5 miles.
And I came home and took a nap.
Then you took a nap, baby. We've had a good off day. We'll put it that way.
Shout out to Shanna, who is watching Leo, because I really needed that nap.
Yeah. But anyways, really, I was running on the treadmill this morning, and I thought about your message. So your message has already been applied in my life, and I told myself the joy set before me is I won't look terrible in a bathing suit at Seaside.
Wow.
That's for the joy I set in front of me.
Vanity.
Very vain, but also the truth is Rich Wilkerson says this line, which is really true, and it really is why I work out. I don't work out for vanity because my body always looks the same as my wife told me last week. It's the same. So vanity isn't really my calling, but he says he works out for sanity. And I do feel that. I feel so much more energy and so much happier about life and so much more. I'm even like, I was thinking through, I woke up this morning with the Easter message on my mind. Literally, I woke up at 6 a.m. I woke up at 6 a.m. and started literally just started meditating on the thought I have for Easter and felt like the Lord was giving me stuff. So I typed that in my notes. I went and worked out. And I even thought through even how working out just helps me to stay disciplined. Like finishing those 2 miles will help me be disciplined this week and not procrastinating the message and finishing that. And I just feel so much more sane and so much more healthy. And we are body, soul, spirit. And so it helps when you work out your body.
And now this is a workout podcast.
Yeah, but I really am saying that because of your message.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening.
You said a couple things yesterday that were good. Well, we'll start there. So practical application there on being able to endure things because you see the joy at the finish line.
More than seeing the joy, before you can even get to that point, you have to decide what you're looking at. And what you're looking at brings you joy, but you can find a lot of things to look at that can present themselves as joy. And whatever you fix your eyes on long enough can become a joy. And that can be a really great thing, or it can be a really bad thing. If you fix your eyes long enough on wanting to be healthy or wanting to accomplish like a fitness goal, it becomes joyful. Whereas maybe in the beginning it's, a drudgery. But you can also fix your eyes on something that's not actually healthy for you or not actually healthy for your soul. And the longer you meditate on that thing, the more it can become an object of your affection. I remember growing up in high school, my dad always using the word.
What was that?
That was my phone. My dad
Might
always
not be paying for that this week.
my dad always using the word propinquity. Like I'd have a friend who like didn't like somebody, and then the next thing you knew, they were dating. And my dad would say, that's what happens, it's propinquity. And it's this concept of if you spend a lot of time with somebody, you can start to think that you are attracted to them when maybe there actually isn't very much substance there to be attracted to. It's just a lot of time often equals a lot of affection. And if you have your eyes fixed on somebody who is just a great person, full of character, full of life, it makes sense, and it can be healthy to naturally have an inclination towards them. But you can also fix your eyes on somebody who's got a ton of red flags and is not good for your life, and you can start to build an affection for them as well, because you're spending so much time around them.
Yeah, one of the things I thought about today is I thought about when I was running. I was thinking, and I had that thought, and it really did help me finish the 2 miles. And I was thinking afterwards, just through the thought of, I think a lot of us try to endure stuff. Why are you smiling?
I'm just trying to stay awake over here. I'm waking up from my nap.
But I think a ton of people try to endure.
Yeah.
But if you haven't intentionally defined what your purpose or what your calling is or what your finish line is, then you're just in a impossible state of enduring. Like you're putting yourself in a really impossible state to endure, because endurance has to have a finish line.
Yeah.
Like endurance biblically has a finish line, and it's eternity with Jesus. And so I think that's really important, is to determine what is the purpose, what is the finish line, because once I do that, now I can look to that intentionally when I'm having to endure past pain, and I can stay consistent and be on a roll.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I thought about today, is just like, have we defined what our purpose is? And I think that could go into every area of our life, to sit down and actually define what is our purpose in raising these kids? What is our purpose in our marriage? What is our purpose in owning this business? What is our purpose in our finances? What is our purpose in our job, et cetera, et cetera? What has God called us to? And then that allows me to endure the right things, and it allows me to escape the right things.
And I think too, not having a finish line, that's what leads to like hopelessness.
Yeah.
And hopelessness leads to depression and anxiety and all kinds of things that we don't want to open ourselves up to.
Yeah. And I just think, how many times do I not have an intentional finish line, so I engage in the wrong things?
Yeah.
Like if my finish line, we'll keep using the illustration of working out. If my finish line in working out is to be skinny, but then I eat like 10,000 calories. I eat like somebody trying to gain a lot of weight, like intentionally. Like I eat like 10,000 calories a day. I don't do any cardio. I only lift super heavy weights. It's not so much that putting on a lot of muscle and getting bigger would be wrong, but it wouldn't help me to achieve what my finish line is.
Yeah.
So I think also defining your finish line, it doesn't just help you endure, but it also, like, I can think of parenting, for example. If I know what my finish line is in parenting, what my end goal is, then it helps me to endure through things that I don't want to endure through. It helps me to endure through disciplining my kid. It helps me endure through spending time engaged with my kid in something that they care about that I care nothing about. It helps me to escape the right conflicts and to not just get involved in every conflict that doesn't matter. Like, it really helps me to then find the joy too, because now I know I can see little victories in the place that I'm heading, and that creates joy.
And what you're saying too, what I heard is it helps you know what to say yes to and what to say no to. And yes and no isn't always just based off of good or bad.
Right.
Like that's a massive concept in following Jesus. That a lot of the things we most have to deal with is knowing when to say yes and when to say no. And there's not necessarily a formula to follow, because if I'm following Jesus's plan for my life, my yeses and nos are going to look wildly different from somebody else who's following Jesus' plan for their life. And it's so reassuring to know how to say yes and how to say no and when to say yes and when to say no. And being able to have a conviction. I actually was talking to a parent in our church on Saturday, and they needed to make a pretty serious decision concerning their child, their student. And I think they were hoping that I would maybe be more helpful than I was, but I just said, I can't really tell you what to do, because the reality is only Jesus knows this child's heart. And so you have to be able to make a choice and then follow that conviction, because this specific circumstance, no matter what choice you make, there's going to be consequences. There's no pain-free way to go, at this fork in the road. And so you want to know that at least you've said yes to the thing that Jesus has asked you to say yes to, because it's going to get hard no matter what. And you want to be able to know it is hard, but I followed a conviction from the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting is that to stay on a roll, it requires trust.
Yeah.
And I think about that passage in James that talks about a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways.
I think I tried to reference that on Sunday morning.
And it even goes to your point that you made on Sunday of Jesus not being a hobby, but being a master.
Yeah.
If Jesus is my master, there's certain times I have to do something and I have to trust him. Like in that situation, there's a situation that we've been dealing with of having to make a decision. And the reality is no matter what decision I make, it's going to lead to frustration in some area.
Yeah.
So like if I make this decision, it's frustrating. And there's actually a quote that says leadership is making decisions that frustrate people. Because in leadership, you make a decision, and if you make that decision, if it's to omit something, that frustrates a group of people. If it's to continue something or to do something, then that frustrates a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really in the seat where you're going to frustrate people because you're making a decision, and not very few times in life, if ever, is a decision made that unanimously is supported.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're saying is like, that's why it's important that Jesus is your master, because he's a bad hobby. Because if he's a hobby and you're kind of going back and forth, and sometimes you're trusting him, but then the minute it gets hard, you're not trusting him, then you're never really getting to the joy that you desire, because there's no joy in that. There's no joy in treating him as a hobby that's helpful when everything's good or when everything's easy and comfortable, but then rejecting him when it's something that's a little bit frustrating. And also, last thing I'll throw to you is like, as I think even through this whole thing about like what you're saying with the parent, what I'm saying about the decisions that we have to make and being a leader and making leadership decisions, is the truth is that whether you follow Jesus or don't follow Jesus, there's still going to be people that disagree with you, or people that are frustrated with you, or people I'll say it this way, not everything's going to work out perfectly either way.
Mm-hmm.
So why not just let Jesus be the master and just trust him? And I think that's where real joy comes from, because now I'm putting my full weight down on, I'm trusting Jesus. He's got to be my defender. He's got to be the one that takes care of me. He's got to be the one that takes care of them. He's got to be the one that like ultimately makes everything work out and orchestrates everything, because he's God and I'm not.
Yeah. I had two favorite parts of my message yesterday. I don't mean
Glad you liked your message.
I haven't listened to it, so I don't mean that in a way of like, I said this and it was good. Actually, I rarely go back and listen to my messages. My dad's like, you should go back and listen to your messages.
I listened to him like
So,
right away.
I don't know what that means. He's like really wanting me to go listen to it.
Yeah, I listened to mine like right away.
So if he hadn't told me
jealous.
yesterday, great job, I'd be worried as to like, why does he want me to go listen to it so bad? He was like, this is has nothing to do with what I'm about to say. He said, okay, I want you to watch it. I want you to listen to it one time without watching and listen for your voice. He always does say, I need to be more like up and down with my voice and not just so steady. And he said, and then I want you to listen to it one time on mute. Just watch yourself. And I was like, I don't think I can watch myself doing that for 40 minutes, but I'm going to do it because it's important to him. Anyways, two things I liked, and I feel like I can say this because I really do feel like the Lord gives me my messages. I'm not creative enough to come up with them on my own. But I love how the Lord gave me the example of Graham and Leo in the room, and just that out of sight, out of mind. Because the reality is, out of sight, out of mind is never the true state of being. Like it is never true that if I can't see the Lord doing something, that he's not there. There is no such thing as outside of God's presence. And we are so prone to acting like we don't know that. We do so many things as if we are oblivious to the fact that Jesus is present with us every moment of every day.
That's kind of the battle though too, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Because like that's the part of like not being able to see him.
Yeah.
That sometimes makes that part difficult.
But I do think if you asked most people who attend church regularly, can God see you at all times?
For sure.
Everyone knows, yes.
And that's kind of the thing of taking an idea and actually like integrating it. Integration. It's my word of the day apparently.
Have you seen Severance?
No.
Oh, I watched all of that without you.
Yeah, but of taking an idea and really integrating it into reality.
Yeah.
Which is really what discipleship kind of is. Discipleship is really like, come and follow me, and accepting the invitation and on the idea that like I'm supposed to do this, and then really that being integrated into the reality of your everyday real life.
Yeah. No, that part just really like stood out to me when the Lord gave it to me, of like him even showing me, like I'm literally standing right here.
That's a good picture.
The other part of the message I just loved, that really wasn't a main point, but that I just had so much fun like thinking about, was the disciples and mainly Peter's response when Jesus is telling them like, hey, you're about to have no consistency in your discipleship of me. Like today is Thursday. By the time you go to sleep tonight, every single one of you is going to have stumbled. And Peter is just so convinced. He doesn't even just like argue with Jesus and say like, no, you're wrong. He like tries to one up Jesus. Even if everybody else denies you, I won't. I would die for you before I denied you. And it's so funny too, because I think this is what Stephanie talked to our kids about in kids' church yesterday. Because Graham was explaining something with the rooster, and
yeah, she posted on Facebook that. My goodness, she
should have taken a nap.
She posted on Facebook that was her story.
Yeah, and it was like Peter's pride was just so. It would also, as foolish as it is for me to pretend like God's not present in every moment of every day, it's just as foolish for me to think that I have no tendencies to pull away from God and forsake him as my master in any area of my life.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was just thinking through the way that the last three messages all kind of like collaborate together. And Peter really doesn't slow his roll. He decreases his roll, and he's very inconsistent.
Yeah.
But God is gracious, which is the older, wiser ox, being gentle and patient and kind and low.
And you know what's crazy? You can see that change that takes place in Peter, specifically between Peter at that table with Jesus saying, I would die before I denied you. And he can't hear a word that Jesus is saying. You have that Peter. And then, of course, we know Jesus meets with Peter on the beach. 3 times do you love me? But then fast forward into the book of Acts, and you have Peter up on a rooftop. And he falls asleep, and he has a vision of a sheet lowering down from heaven with unclean animals in it. And God speaks to Peter and tells him, don't call unclean what I've said is clean. And he's preparing Peter to minister to non-Jewish people. And then sure enough, Peter goes downstairs and there are people at the door waiting to take Peter to minister to these Gentiles. And what if Peter would have had that same position of pride and would have been as argumentative on the rooftop in the book of Acts as he was at dinner with Jesus in the book of Matthew? I mean, the spread of the gospel would have been so limited by Peter's pride. And so thank goodness that the Lord worked that out of him, that by the time Peter is seen in the book of Acts, Peter has truly submitted to, like you talked about a couple weeks ago, the yoke of Jesus that isn't always, but what about this? And that's not true. I would never. What if Peter's response would have been, I would never, go downstairs and talk to those people?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a great picture too of how patient God is with us.
Yeah.
And how really the goal, really, as we kind of conclude Holy Rollers, and who knows, maybe we'll come back at it at some point this year.
Just randomly in September,
randomly,
Holy Rollers Part 5.
Randomly do it, yeah. But
that's so funny.
As we kind of conclude Holy Rollers, I think the only way to truly be a holy roller is to be patient, and it's to slow down, and it's to actually stop living life at the speed where it's really easy to cover up things that are ungodly, and it's really easy to just ignore things that are ungodly. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And to patiently allow the Lord to begin to really bring transformation. I think about even what you said yesterday at the start of your message about that we're having to learn the same thing we learned in kids' church.
Yeah.
And it is true, is that are we really, and there's an element of that that's just a human experience of us having to be taught by God over and over in different seasons of life some of the same lessons, that there's definitely an element to that. And at the same time, a sign of spiritual maturity is that we start to get the lesson and live out the lesson without having to be taught it over and over and over and over again, and so yeah, I just think that's part of being a holy roller. Part of being a holy roller is slowing down and intentionally getting irritated with the things in our lives that are ungodly.
Yeah.
And then saying, I don't want, which is a funny metaphor, when my sleeves are down, there's things that are covered. The only way that I can roll up my sleeves is to uncover some things. And so to allow some things to be uncovered. I even think about Peter, like, would Peter have ever been Peter if he hadn't been crushed by his disobedience?
Yeah.
If he hadn't been crushed by his chains, if his chains hadn't brought him to a place on a beach, having breakfast with Jesus in an intimate moment, would he ever have become Peter that we see in Acts? Probably not. So I think it's like we have to allow things to crush us sometimes. We have to stop living with an undercurrent of irritation and really let ourselves be irritated to the point of being crushed and slowing down so that there can actually be like godliness that's produced.
Yeah. So good. I'm assuming you memed the message.
Yes.
Yes. So if you didn't see it, Life High memed the message yesterday. What a treat for us all. But like the second meme in there is, it's a hard pill to swallow. Learning the same thing now that we learned in kids' church and still lacking spiritual maturity. But that really is like, I've been following Jesus for 27 years, and I should not be in the same place that I was when I was 4 years old, sitting on my parents' bedroom floor, asking Jesus to come into my heart. If I was, there would be an observation about my life that something was wildly out of order. How could somebody follow Jesus for 27 years and still look the exact same as they did at the beginning? That would be very confusing to the world around us, which was the whole problem with the first portion of scripture we talked about yesterday, where the master has the servant who's spectacular until he's not, and then turns out that guy was abusive and considering himself and living for himself, and he had to be tossed out into the street with the rest of the people who weren't who they said they were. And a lack of spiritual maturity just shows the world who's looking for authenticity that the transformational power of Jesus must not be everything that we say that it is. If we don't allow it to work in our own lives, how do we share that with the world around us?
Yeah, kind of goes back to the illustrations in the second service last week of if we're gonna roll up our sleeves and help people, we have to be out of the pit.
Yeah.
So, that's good.
Great.
It was a good message.
Thanks.
Good job. Easter Sundays next week.
Woohoo!
The Super Bowl of Sundays.
I'm excited. I'm tired a little going into it, but by Friday I'm gonna have picked up my energy and I'm gonna be ready.
It'll be the first time I've preached 3 services since the very first time I ever preached.
Because the very first time you ever preached, you preached services?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, were those 3 services, did I only speak for about 10 minutes? And then did Stan Cosby have to come up and fill in the rest of the time? Yes, he did. But did I do 3 services? Yes.
But
yes,
people wouldn't be mad if you only talked for 10.
Yeah. Now they're like, this guy talks too long.
That's so funny. It'll be really fun. It's going to be, I think every service is going to have its own dynamic. They're going to be the same, so people can come to, anyone.
Well, you never know what's going to happen.
What is
They'll be the same programming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
But
gotta.
even now, I really do want to just give a plug for the 8:30 service. Listen, I know it's early.
You get to be with Miss Daisy.
Okay, that is a massive benefit to coming to the 8:30. But also, my personal opinion is like, I like your messages better for service.
So mean. But also,
I don't think that's fair. Like them second service.
I don't think that's fair.
I don't
actually,
like
the last 2 weeks, you've actually said second service is better. The last 2 ones.
Well, I'm trying to do a plug for first
Yeah.
service.
but it's also hard because you're sitting in both of them. It's same for me. Like, you hear the first one, and so
I'm going to be honest. If I had to guess, I'm going to say the majority of podcast listeners are first service crowd.
Interesting.
Because I will say that is one dynamic about our church. First service is like our like.
You're just throwing all the second people.
No, I'm about to say first service is like our born and raised in the church people. Like they know, they're like shouting you down.
Oh, they're
clap, and you read the scripture. We're clapping because we just love the word of God.
Yeah, there's all that.
There isn't their second service down to have a good time. Second service loves a good joke.
Second service does laugh a lot more.
Loves a good story.
Yeah.
Doesn't cheer as much about the actual scripture.
Correct.
Yeah. First service, those are some spiritual people.
Well, they're up at 8:30. So
that's what I'm saying. I think if you
and all the second service people are like, I thought I was spiritual.
No, but listen, I think if you're like, man, I just feel kind of stuck in
all right. This is all advertisement for you to come to first service. If you come to second service, we're kidding. There's not a competition.
No,
we love you both.
It's not a competition only.
And let's get back to Easter Sunday.
Okay, that's where I was going. That's where I was going.
10 and noon. If you're a life churcher,
please don't come to the 10.
Come to the 8 or noon because 10 is going to be jammed.
But also, that's what I'm saying. If only 30 people listen to this one.
There's normally about 200 people.
Okay, yeah. Please come to the 8 or the noon. If I'm a new person, I've never been to church before, I'm probably coming to the 10. And I need people there to greet me, but I also need some space for my family.
Yeah. So Easter Sunday, the week after Easter, we're gonna start a new series called "Teach Us to Pray." And we're literally just gonna. It's gonna be a very basic series, but I think we might do some podcast stuff and things that go along with the series, and maybe even some social media things around prayer. So if you have any questions about prayer, most people's questions in the world center around how to read the Bible or how to pray.
Hmm.
So if you have questions about prayer, put them in the comments. I think we'll have a way for you to submit questions in the lobby during the series, and we're just gonna talk about prayer for a few weeks.
Well, that's the first time hearing about that.
Yeah, it's in my head. I've got an idea.
Great.
I'm gonna just probably build it. It's just like the mailbox idea that we did in Life High. Put a little mailbox up. Let people
Speaking of
submit questions.
mailboxes, somebody hit our mailbox. If it was you,
Ours?
yeah, I could put our mailbox back up. And have you not seen it?
For real?
The box is off of the post. I just sat it back on there.
You're serious?
Yeah.
I did not know that. All right, well that's the first I've heard of that. I'm gonna go fix my mailbox, everybody. We love you guys. Just keep showing up, and
Bye.
we'll see you for Easter Sunday. Peace.